there's a meltdown at BSDNC, I mean MSNBC, NBC as a whole. Because remember, folks, NBC is a trusted news outlet. But all of a sudden, there seemed to be a little bit of a drama taking place. Drama, trouble brewing at NBC. Now, why? What happened? Well, apparently, the sacred land of journalism and integrity was shocked that Ronna McDaniel, was part of their network. Now, who is Ronna McDaniel? Not Ronald McDonald. Who is she? What is she about? Well, she is the former head of the Republican Party. NBC News parts with Ronna McDaniel following internal backlash. So Ronna McDaniel, former chair of the Republican National Committee, was ousted by NBC News as a paid contributor after vocal protests from the network staff over her hiring. NBCU News Group chair Cesar Conde announced the decision was to part with Daniels, who just made her inaugural network appearance Sunday, to staff in a Tuesday memo obtained by The Hill. No organization, particularly a newsroom, can succeed unless it's a cohesive and aligned, Conde wrote. Over the last few days, it became clear that this appointment undermines that goal. Boy, are you stupid? You guys in corporate media do this shite all the time. You hire people part of the two-party system. That's just how it's done. Unless Chucky Boy Todd and Maddow were just so shocked and their feelings were hurt because what? The former RNC National Committee head, former chair, was there. This isn't the first time, baby. What's everyone complaining about? Everybody and their feelings needs. Listen, don't let your feelings override your judgment. Both McDaniel and network had come under criticism from some of the network's biggest stars, not journalists, stars, because they're stars because they have agents. They have agents, baby. Over her comments and role in former President Trump's efforts to overturn the result of the 2020 election. The online news outlet Puck first reported on the network's plans to cut ties with McDaniel, while Axios reported Tuesday that McDaniel was exploring legal options in the event the network was to terminate her deal. Goodness gracious, Cretaceous. Well, what started all of this? Well, a beginning is a very delicate time. So here's Chucky Boy Todd. Now, I'm surprised he was able to get away with this.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. Well, I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So,
and you guys haven't done the same? That's the pot calling the kettle black, little gerbil. I mean, Chuck Todd. I mean, come on. You know what the game is. This is how it's been doing. This is how it's been long before the independent media networks came online to shine a light on your utter hypocrisy. You guys have been doing this for decades with each other, the media and the political class, even though it's all scripted. But dare I say it, a plot line from WCW or UCW or WWF back in the day made more sense than what we're being given in corporate media.
it is, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And
access, you goof troop.
When we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience.
What I tell you,
it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network. See.
But you guys are stars. You're pundits. You're not journalists. You guys are given a script to read and misinform the American people or keep us in the dark. It's all about access. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys aren't going to really call out the utter hypocrisy of Joe Biden and the Democrats. You guys are part of that shield wall because, oh no, you're afraid of Donald Trump. Oh no, you're afraid of third parties. Oh no, you're surprised that American voters and the American people don't trust corporate media because corporate media has freaking messed up on the job for far more longer than I could count on this show right now because I'm not in the mood in shining a light in your utter hypocrisy, corporate media.
If it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on here.
Yeah, you did the best you could. Well, hang on. There's so much meltdown happening here, folks. Give it up for Rachel Maddow. This is a horrible way to pause, but here we go. Maddow is going to tell you how she feels and her feelings.
And so I want to associate myself with all my colleagues, both at MSNBC and at NBC News, who have voiced loud and principled objections to our company putting on the payroll someone who hasn't just attacked us as journalists, but someone who is part of an ongoing project to get rid of our system of government. Someone who still is trying to convince Americans that this election stuff, it doesn't really work. That this last election, it wasn't a real result.
Oh, gee, corporate media. How many times you said that wasting a vote for third party it doesn't help out democracy, and that we should all fall in line and vote for Biden because he's going to preserve our democracy. And this right here is almost akin. This video is like these are the people entrusted in reading the news, right? And they're like the mean girls. Like, you can't sit with us.
Our chairman of the NBC Universal News Group, Cesar Conde, who we both know very well, he sent a memo that we all got as employees here, rescinding the hiring of Ronna McDaniel. And I know I felt very strongly about it. I know you felt very strongly about it. I think everyone from 4 o'clock on, from Nicole all the way to midnight, we all felt very strongly and said so on our respective shows yesterday. And I just have to say, when somebody does the right thing, I feel like it should be acknowledged as publicly as we acknowledged our outrage. And so I know how I feel about it. I am grateful to Cesar for actually making the right decision. I think it was the right decision, but I want to get your take as well.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me about it. I still feel like
Oh, thank you for asking me about a very easy question. How my feelings are hurt because some Republican RNC chairs here.
I mean, why do you think she's there? For access. That's how it's done all the time. Fox News does it, CNN does it, ABC does it, CBS, everybody does it in corporate media. Why are you acting shocked about it? It is what it is. And of course NBC is going to do it. But oh wait, everyone's feelings got hurt because what? You had a little bit of a 1-2 many boxing matches and you got a black eye or something. Calm the hell down. I
still feel like a little. It always feels wrong to talk about things, in the company as if it's news. And it's just this, it's not the way either you or I are wired, I know. But I will just say that journalists are a fractious bunch. And in our big company with all sorts of different journalistic entities, you have all sorts of different people working in this business, doing all sorts of different kinds of work. And to see the essentially unanimous feeling among all the journalists in this building and all the sort of senior staff and all the producers and everybody in this building about this was one thing. But then to see the executives and the leadership hear that and respond to it and be willing to change course based on their respect for us and hearing what we argued, I have deep respect for that.
No, it's stupid. This is stupid. This is why you should not take corporate media, especially MSNBC or NBC or any of its affiliates, seriously at all, because people's feelings got hurt. Oh, our feelings are hurt. What do you expect? I mean, come on, it's a toxic environment there. And these people probably just didn't like the fact that somebody was there as a paid contributor. But how else do you think? I mean, are you going to do this to every single person of a different political perspective that's going to be a paid contributor to MSNBC? This is why we need to break away from corporate media, because of stuff like this. It's high school mentality.
I mean what I said on the air last night on my show, that I think that acknowledging that you might have gotten something wrong is a real sign of strength, a real show of strength. And I think it's a show of strength. And I think it's a show of respect for the people who work at this company and who make us who we are. That leadership was willing to change on this. And I'm grateful to them. You know, it's not about hiring a Republican. It's not even about hiring somebody who has Trump ties. This was a really specific case because of Ms. McDaniel's and her involvement in the election interference stuff. And I'm grateful that our leadership was willing to.
They were happy to follow orders. So let's try and make some sense out of this, right? And I know it's a lot to deal with, but here is Glenn Greenwald giving a proper breakdown of the hypocrisy of NBC and the CEOs there, and just of all the drama that's there. This is why I tell people, unplug your TVs and break away from corporate media.
Donald Trump, whether they like it or not, is the leading candidate for president in the United States in 2024. And NBC, which claims to be a news outlet, is explicitly apologizing because they hired somebody minimally associated with that campaign, even though they're surrounded by people who came right from the Democratic National Committee in the Biden White House. They see no contradiction in that at all.
Right in. What were your takeaways?
Look, let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. Well, I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this.
How is that not the same for so many of the people that they have employed on their staff? They have on their staff a former Joe Biden and Kamala Harris aide named Simone Sanders. She has her own show on MSNBC.
Simone Sanders and, Jen Psaki. Those two big brain geniuses. Never forget Simone Sanders. And, I got to say, I am really impressed on how many times she did cartwheels and verbal gymnastics to protect Joe Biden and from his stuttering and stammering in the 2020 Democratic primary. I mean, that was incredible to see Simone Sanders do that. But also, I'm surprised she was able to stomach being part of Kamala's staff for so long. Because remember, in case all of you forgot, Kamala is still hemorrhaging people who work for her. What does that tell you about the leadership of Kamala Harris?
MSNBC on the weekend, she came right working from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and then got put in MSNBC. Jen Psaki went as the official spokesperson for the Biden White House, whose job was to lie if necessary to defend Joe Biden, to having a show on MSNBC and constantly being on MSNBC, including Meet the Press. They have the former head of the CIA, John Brennan, and a former senior FBI official, the former associate director, Frank Figliuzzi, who's on their airway all the time. These are trained liars of the U.S. security state. And you would never see Chuck Todd ask this question. Well, how do we know? Whether because before they said they were speaking on behalf of the Biden White House or the DNC or the CIA or the FBI. What you're seeing here is the liberal ethos that I think is so important to understand. The reason Democrats never objected to the hiring of, obviously, Democratic Party spokespeople, but even the heads of the CIA, the head of the FBI, the head of the NSA, all kinds of former Pentagon officials, is because they don't regard those U.S. security state agencies as menacing or dishonest. They regard those as their benevolent allies.
That's all about access. Now, remember, during the height of the Trump presidency, when Chucky Boy Todd, not Chuck Todd, Chuck Schumer, get those two confused, but they're both one and the same. They're both Chucks. I mean, Cucks. I mean, Chucks. I mean, Cucks. Sorry about that. When, good old Chucky Schumer was looking at a document. I think it was on ABC or NBC, and he was saying just, "Ooh, how bad it is for Donald Trump to make an enemy out of the intelligence services." Because never once has the CIA or FBI or State Department, never once have they ever done anything wrong. Never once have they ever committed a crime. But anyone who was associated with Trump, they're a bad person unless they're a whistleblower and decide to be part of the neoliberal fold again. Now, that doesn't make Donald Trump a saint, but it really shows the overall incompetence and the willful negligence the corporate media is willing to do to maintain their narrative and control what all of you people see and hear. And corporate media, as an institution, is not designed to empower or inform you. Never forget ABC News. They had the story on first name Jeffrey, last name E. They had the story. If it were not for James O'Keefe and, well, at the time, Project Veritas, when it was still around, they released a video, and you had this, while the cameras were supposedly off, you have this one ABC journalist, pundit, commentator, so angry, upset, saying, "We had everything. We had the interviews. We had the documents. We had the proof." And they, that could have been my 2 FBI handlers telling me to wrap it up. But hold on, let me finish. Bill and Bob. Shout out to my NSA FBI handlers. Love you guys. Number one, ABC gets a call from the Crown because guess what? A member of the royal family was associated with first name Jeffrey, last name E. And they told ABC News to cut the story. It's all about access. It's all about control. It's all about maintaining a narrative.
Of course, they see nothing wrong with hiring the CIA director. They consider that person a benign ally. The CIA is who spread Russiagate. The FBI is who spread Russiagate. Tried to put Donald Trump in prison. They love those agencies. There's only one entity, one institution in the eyes of news corporations that are bridged too far. And that is people who are associated with the Trump-led Republican Party. That's it. That's the only prism through which they understand the world. You can put neocons on NBC, and they do constantly, who lied the country into war, who defended torture and kidnapping people off the streets of Europe and sent them to Syria and Egypt to be tortured, as Nicole Wallace, the former Bush Cheney White House spokesperson, did, who has a show on MSNBC and is constantly on MSNBC. There is no bridge too far for liberal viewers of NBC and MSNBC News and for their personalities, except for the Republican Party.
It's madness and insanity. But how else should we end this segment? Well, I think we're going to see some interesting drama play out because she did sign a contract. Ronna McDaniels. Let's go ahead and play this.
About this thing.
Well, Ronna is a friend, and I did work for NBC, and in November I worked with Caesar and Rebecca and the whole team. I've never seen anything this brutal since I got started in media in 1990. Ronna is going to sue everyone who defamed her for breach of contract, for intentional infliction of mental distress. They are going to sue for the destruction of her business opportunities that come from being on TV. I think they made a terrible decision, and they allowed the MSNBC bleed to take over their network, and the cult has taken over the news division, and it's going to hurt the 74 million people who voted for Donald Trump are not going to watch NBC News.
They don't watch NBC News anyways. And anyway, here's the thing, help your loved one. Get them unplugged from corporate media. So why did I play this segment? Why did I even talk about this? Well, because corporate media as an institution was never designed, as I said before, to be a legitimate source of news. But yet corporate media has a favor of social media and all of our institutions deeming them legitimate authorities. But this is the same corporate media that has turned a blind eye to all the corrupt activities of our politicians. Occasionally they'll get something right. And occasionally, if enough public pressure happens, they'll have to, quote unquote, do their job. But it's all show. It's all about who can bring in the most views. It's all about the numbers. That's show business 101. Corporate media is no different than Hollywood or any other entertainment industry. It's about how many eyeballs they can get. But see, like any kind of entertainment industry, there's always jealousy around, pettiness, bitterness, because these people at corporate media are not serious people. They just don't like certain people, and they're jealous. And while they are not focusing on the news, they're focusing on their ego and their pride, and occasionally sometimes teaming up just to get rid of somebody they don't like.